everybody. Now this evening I am going to make traditional Irish soda bread, and I haven't made this, well I had a dummy run with this and I was very pleased with it, but it's not something that I bake all the time. But it is something that I have seen baked in my aunt's kitchen 50 years ago on a house that didn't have electricity, that used the open fireplace, and she had this special sort of oven that she used, that she put hot coals on. But I'll tell you more about that as I go along. Okay, the ingredients for this are just 4 of them. So there's all-purpose flour, you need a pound of that, or 450 grams I think that is, and between 12 and 14 or 15 ounces of buttermilk. You will need some bread soda, and you will need a teaspoon of salt. So there's a teaspoon of bread soda, a teaspoon of salt, and that's you'll need your buttermilk and then your all-purpose flour. Now I've mixed the bread soda and the salt and the flour all together. What I'm going to do is, just to be sure that they're all combined, I'm going to actually sieve it in here to my bowl, my mixing bowl. All right. Now it's a very simple bread to make, and I suppose all cultures have these very basic breads that have the least amount of ingredients, and just use everything, just what's available to them. And this is the simplest of breads to make, and it's one of these things that the less work you do to it, the better. So you obviously, clean hands are necessary. The rings are off, and I'm going to make a well in the center there, and I'm going to start adding my buttermilk, and I'm going to sort of use my hands as a sort of a cloys type thing, and just to gather it all together. So pop that much in, and just gently sort of throwing it into the middle there like that to incorporate it. A lot of this is guesswork, and I've had a look on YouTube with a couple of other people doing it, and I certainly remember my aunt baking this, like I say, in the kitchen, to be baked then on an open fireplace, and that was over 50 years ago. And it was kind of like it was just the end of an era, because just shortly after that, maybe 2 or 3 years later, they got the electricity in, and it changed everything. I mean, obviously it changed her life for the better. Though she always did talk about how great the bread tasted when it was baked over the open fire, but I don't think she would have ever wanted to go back to it. I mean, electricity made such a difference, especially for, I think, the lives of women in rural Ireland. Anyway, here we go. I'm sort of bringing it together. So when you get it to this stage, and I think I have more than kind of feels wet enough. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to just toss it out onto my board here. And there we go. Just scrape all the bits. And then I have one of these shakers for my flour, but you don't have to have that. You can have just grab a bit of flour and sort of flour your hands first, so that you can kind of get some of the dough off. Like it's all about getting down and dirty with this stuff, because you get a great feel for it, and like I say, it gets everywhere, but once it starts coming together, I think the idea seems to be to have plenty of flour available to gather it all together. So that's basically it. What you're doing now is just bringing it together. You're not kneading it like you would a bread that you use yeast in. Less is more, so you're just looking to bring it all together in a smooth sort of bowl, I suppose. Anyway, let's see, here we go. A little bit more is necessary, and it's a bit tacky, all right, but let's see. I'm just going to give it a bit more of a going over. Now, here we go. My aunt would have made this almost every day of her life, apart from Sundays, of course, where they weren't allowed to do any what was considered unnecessary servile work. But I mean, there was still an awful lot of work to be done on a farm then, even on Sundays, like milking cows by hand and herding cattle and feeding chickens and all sorts of things. But like I say, this is one of the things that I remember so well, her baking this cake. And she would then, for a treat, sometimes she would make something, she would add things to it to make it turn it into what she called a sweet cake. And there'd be, I think, raisins and mixed peels, and I don't know if she put sugar in it or not. But anyway, I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to pop it up here on my floured baking sheet. Let's bring it over here so you can see it. I'm just going to do a little bit more of this. And then a very important part of it, and there's a whole load of sort of, I think clichés is the word to say in Irish, like superstitions about putting the cross in the soda bread. And obviously it was Catholic and the cross had a significance. And then there was all this thing, the cross would take the fairies and that would come out of the bread. And oh, the countryside was full of stories about pukas and banshees and all sorts of things. So there was a lot of stuff with superstitions. But you can imagine they were in the country, no electricity, absolutely black outside. And you can see how a lot of stories like that came about. So that's it. I'm going to put that into a preheated oven. The oven is quite hot. It's at 225. And then I'm going to sort of immediately put it down to 200. And then I'm going to leave it for about, I'd say it'll take 35 minutes anyway. But I'll have a look and then I'll come back and I'll show you the results. All right? Now, hi, welcome back. Okay, they came out of the oven and 35 minutes it was in altogether. So how you know it's really cooked is, do you hear that? It makes a hollow sound when you knock on it. And it's got a very good colour, so that's fine. I won't cut that for a while because it just needs to relax for a bit. I remember my aunt used to wrap it in a tea towel and she'd leave it for a while. She said that kept the crust nice and soft. But anyway, before I finish, I'll talk about just this product. It's called cream of tartar. And if my aunt didn't have sour milk or buttermilk, she would use this with ordinary milk. And this is needed to go with the soda bread as well. So you put 2 teaspoons of this in. It's cream of tartar. I remember the brand that she used was Beck's Tartar, and I think that's still available in the shops today. So that's just a tip if you haven't got, you could keep that in the house. So you could bake sort of the bread anytime you want it. Now to serve it, obviously you can have this at any time of the day. You could eat it with bread and jam any time of the day, with butter and jam I should say. Or you could have it with your boiled egg in the morning. But this is the way I would recommend it. In the evening, with a nice piece of Irish smoked salmon, with a little bit of salad, and then of course to accompany it, you'd have to have your Guinness. But interesting enough, my aunt's house, they were all teetotalers. They'd taken the pledge, which is pledge that never to drink, and they wore a little badge saying that. But obviously that skips a generation. So that's all I have to say. I hope you enjoy. I hope you get to make it, and I hope you really enjoy baking it like I did. And so keep calm, carry on baking. And I'll just say, slàinte.